Welcome to Rico 12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and am blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast. Rico 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addictions of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others who are on this path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented so many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. Today's speaker for the 198th meeting is Babe K, whose topic of choice is a vast amount of fun that we find on page 16 of the big book. I'm excited to hear his take on this. Babe is a first-time Rico 12er, and we're excited to hear from him. We'll get to his talk in the Q&A afterwards in just a minute. First, for a little bit of business, the Rico 12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and have more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. I invite you to go and listen to and subscribe to the other Rico 12 podcasts that you can find information on in the chat of the live meeting. I'll post it there in a few minutes, and in the show notes of the podcast. On that note, Rico 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our Step 12 in this manner. Thank you to all who have donated and continue to donate, and we really appreciate that. You spearheads out there are really helping make this service possible. If you would also like to join the ranks and become a spearhead and support Rico 12 and our mission, please consider going to www.rico12.com/support. That's RECO12.com, and making either a one-time donation or becoming a monthly spearhead donor. We look forward each week and each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for today, Babe K. Now, Babe, the bio I have here says he was separated from alcohol on March 2nd, 2002. His initial experience with the fellowship was unspectacular, but he immediately fell in love with the big book. Through the process and discipline of the 12 steps, he has been given a life of useful joy beyond his wildest dreams. Take it away, Babe. The floor is yours.
I am Babe, a technically challenged alcoholic. Glad to be here. There was not often that I got to say that in my life of 35 years of alcoholic drinking. And so, yeah, I chose a vast amount of fun. And by the day, well, you probably already figured I'm just goofy about this recovery thing. This is a life beyond my wildest dreams. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. But wait a second. So you'll hear some gloomy parts of my story and how I went through some of the saddest parts and managed to laugh and be cheerful and useful through the process of these 12 steps. It is a discipline. And Justin, I did a page number. I've done a trivia, and you get bonus points for page numbers. I've never got a bonus point in my life. And so how I got here, well, before I got here, what I did, grew up with an uncle that drank every single night, and we woke up to him smashing his bottles, and so we knew it was time to get up and go to work, to school. My dad was a perfectly normal guy. He'd have a couple of beers at his Union clam bake. He taught me to hunt, to fish, sports. He was a perfect dad, and my uncle was a perfect alcoholic uncle. He became a postmaster. He was a master carpenter. He thought we should learn printing. He built us a print shop. He thought we should learn photography. He bought us build a dark room. He built us a gym in the garage attic and a boxing ring. All the time drinking every single night. So I just grew up, yeah. And so I started drinking, and I really liked this. And what I did found, and through my career on the surface, my life looked perfect. I was the guy people came to for advice. I was the guy that kept getting promoted. You know, I was what Bill Wilson wanted to be, and I did not. Deep down, I did not feel like I just belonged with people. You know, and hell, I ain't even 5 feet tall, a little short, stumpy, fat guy. The girls would all be my best friends, and that was it. So now it's so cool because now I get to sponsor women. It turned out to be a great blessing. that I wasn't thinking with my little head most of the time. And so I got here, but I crushed my emotions. And what is happiness but an emotion? What is joy? A deep inner sense of happiness, peace, serenity. And I crushed my emotions. And I mean, they were down so far that I didn't even cry when my mother died. I didn't cry at my own mother's funeral. People were not inconveniences. I like people, all right. I was popular. I did all this stuff. But if somebody died or moved on, I just erased them from the Rolodex of my mind. I had no compassion, no feeling for anyone or anything. I would wait for my wife to go to bed every night. Out would come a bottle and a novel. And I would get lost in the novel and drink till I fell asleep. And that's how I knew where to. The next night, I'd look for the drool spot. This must be where I left off in the book. And I'd go to work and do just fine. And then I'd come home, and I was actually a really good parent, even though internally I felt nothing. The only person in the world that I absolutely loved was my wife, even though she was the one person I hurt the worst. I asked her years down the road, what's the worst thing I ever did to you? And well, you'll get to hear how I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh my God, I got only 20 minutes to do this. 21 years of recovery. Stick around, keep coming back, as they say. So, what, but I asked, what is the worst thing I ever did to you? She said, you would make me feel small and stupid and insignificant. That wasn't even on my list. So what Kate and I would have an argument, and we'd kind of just avoid each other for a couple of days. So Monday night, March 2nd, 2002, she came home from work with a bandage on her arm. I said, what happened to you? And I can still see her face, the pain in her eyes when she said, you don't even know, do you? I said, no, why? She said, that's where you bit me. That's when the whole house of cards came crashing down. My friend in Miami says that I didn't just break a plate, I broke the whole china closet. My life, as I knew it, was over. I didn't deserve any friends. I didn't believe I deserved to live. And I was over. And so I must have heard of AA, but I picked up picked up a phone book, called AA. I got 5 minutes to get to a meeting. God would give me 6, I'd have weaseled out of it. But I went to this meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and like I said, it was unspectacular. My friend Emmy says, you're going to fit right in here. And I kid her, that's the only thing she's got right in 21 years. But I did not fit in there. They said, this is George, he's the sponsor. And those guys there are his sponsees. Their job's turn their hat around frontwards, pull their pants up, mow his lawn, and paint his house. I'm thinking, I ain't wearing a hat. I've got my own lawn to mow and my own house to paint. I guess I don't need one of these sponsor things. And they passed around a list of phone numbers. I thought, oh, gee, that was really nice. Guy next to me yanked it out of my hand, said, that's for me. I said, okay. Just like when somebody says, you want to try this? What do you say? Okay. Afterwards, you ask, what was that? And then they opened the meeting, and all it was, and now I know they were trying to help me identify. But all I heard was a bunch of AAERs. I wake up every day battling this disease. I'm just hanging in there one miserable day at a time. Oh, gee, I tried getting sober, but I just relapsed again. And I didn't need to identify with misery. Deep in my core, I was done drinking for good and for all the minute I made that phone call. The minute I saw Kate's face, actually. I just didn't know how. And clearly I'm sitting in a room full of people that also don't know how. And then I eventually got one, and they never gave me a meeting schedule. So all I knew of all AA worldwide was 8:00 Monday night at St. Mary of the Angels Church in Olean, New York. And I wasn't coming back, but my first AA angel, little blonde-haired Native American girl, came up and said, hi, my name's Stacy. What's yours? I said, my name's Jerry, but my friends call me Babe. And well, I've been Babe since I was 8 years old, and I'm older than that now, a couple of months. but and she said, well, I'm calling you Babe. And I have been trudging this road of happy destiny together for all these years. And she's gone through some horrible times, but we become each other's angels. So I came back the next week thinking, I don't know if I want to hear this pain and gloom, despair, and agony on me, but maybe Stacy will be there. So I went, and here she was with this great big Native American guy, and a whack on my arm. And he's hitting me with a big book, my original big book thumper. And he said, you want to get sober? Read this. And well, you've already figured out I'm a little weird. But I read that book, none of the stories. I still got my original book. The stories eventually got some underlines and highlights, but for years, the story section was virgin territory. I probably read some of chapter 7, but I read that book 3 times from that week to the next. I was so struck by the doctor's opinion. I was relieved to find out what was wrong with me. I would have the allergy, like a button pushed on my head. Here we go. Kate would say the bus is leaving. I'd say, safe trip. I'll be home when I get home. And so my allergy was really, really strong, and I didn't know what it was. It was just a way of life. Funny, it tells us that in the doctor's opinion. My alcoholic life was the only life I know. Why doesn't Kate understand this stuff? Well, I can. She couldn't understand what that was any more than I could understand what it is to not experience the phenomenon of craving. We're not on the same planet. And that's why people in Alcoholics Anonymous bind so closely, because we get each other, for better or for worse. But we know what it feels like to be lost, know what it feels like to be miserable, know what it feels like to be afraid. Normal people probably feel that too. But our solution is drown it in booze, drugs, chocolate cake, sex, pick an addiction. We drown these feelings and wonder why it doesn't work. And so we come into this Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm reading Bill's story, and Bill always wanted to prove to the world that he was something. I wanted to just melt into the forest floor when I was hunting. I just want to I'm trying to read. Multitasking is not my forte. Hell, talking ain't even my forte. But so I was spiritual. If I would kill a deer, I would thank its spirit for giving me food. I wanted to drop out of the world, drop into the earth. I learned meditation in college so I could do Shavasana, and my spirit would blend with the universe. Desiderado is my theme, and I did it so I could get the equivalent of 8 hours sleep in an hour of deep meditation. I did it so I could keep drinking, go to school, and work full time. So meditation I guarantee, is not the key to sobriety. Quitting drinking, abstinence is the key to sobriety. But that's not what we're talking about. That's just the bare beginning. How do I get to this vast amount of fun? You heard how I got here, and I'm reading Bill's story. Bill's story on page 8, one of the pages I do know, changed my life. Bottom of page 7.5, Bill's page 7, Bill finds out he's just another pathetic alcoholic, and he wanted to prove to the world that he was something, and I already knew that I was just a plain alcoholic. So then Bill and I are on the same page. And what does he say? I thought of my poor wife. There were good times after all, but that was over now. What I wouldn't give to have that back. I couldn't talk from the podium for years without crying over that, because you already heard how I got here. And then the perfect description of a bottom. No words can express. That's why we talk in metaphors around here. No words can express. If you've experienced it, you don't need my words. If you haven't, no words can express that loneliness, that despair, that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand spreads around us. Alcohol was my master. Oh my God. Now I identify with Bill Wilson, not these knuckleheads in the meeting. But then he, on the bottom of page 8, what does he say? How dark it is before the dawn. that he's soon to be catapulted in what he calls this fourth dimension of existence, a life of usefulness and happiness that gets incredibly more wonderful as time passes. I'm, whoa. And, you know, then I like page 21 because Kate would say, you're such a Jekyll and Hyde. Did she read this book behind my back? You know? But, you know, so I'm relieved to be an alcoholic. And then page 25, you know, a lot of us hear how it works. If you want what we have, it ain't those guys sitting at the Monday night Friends of Bill meeting. It's the people that wrote this book. And they tell us, what did they have? It's on page 25. We have had deep, effective spiritual experience that have revolutionized our whole attitude toward God, toward the universe, toward all the kids on the playground. That's not a quote. They have found much of heaven. They've been rocketed into this fourth dimension of existence. They've and I'm thinking, whoa, I want this. Did any of these people at this meeting read this? I did eventually find a group that actually talked about the solution, and it's been my group ever since. But I wanted this, so I'm willing to pray to whoever. Something is a very good name for God. You know, I don't know about this. What was I doing when I was sitting in the forest but praying? And so, and I started just, and I have not missed a day in over 20 years that I don't start the day with the third step prayer and the seventh step prayer. And then I wake up immediately after that. What I say is, morning, God, here I am. That's my set-aside prayer. Surprise me. And when I start looking for the surprises, you can put miracles in there, but that sounds preachy. Surprise me, God. I am surprised every single day. I don't really care for the serenity prayer. I love the set-aside prayer. New joys, new mysteries, new adventures. Surprise me, God. Here I am. I'm coming to you with empty hands. Let's rock and roll today. And then I asked, what do you want me to think about, God? So now that I'm old and decrepit, the more God is taken from me, the more time I have for contemplation, which is amazing. So I'll meditate for a couple hours on what do you want me to think about, God? And then I try to condense it to 2 paragraphs and send it out one at a time to over 100 of my friends in recovery. Now, I don't do group chats, and I'll kind of tailor it to each person. So that takes up my whole friggin' morning. And, you know, and I have to get it down to a paragraph or 2 because most of my friends are low attention span folks. You can tell I like to get a little windy. And so I'm not even happy, but I'm starting to say this third step prayer. God, I offer myself to you. Why? So you can make something of this lonely, twisted wreck. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Well, yeah, because myself is what damn near killed me and everybody I loved. And take away my difficulties. Well, shit, yeah, I want my difficulties taken away. No, that isn't why. So you can come on here to Rico 12 and tell all of these people that I can't even see that God has done for me what I could never, ever do for myself. Do my difficulties actually go away? No, I can face these things. So I'm doing this deal. I'm doing the 4th step. I'm doing the 5th step. And I found myself waking up many mornings, actually openly weeping with joy, with gratitude. Tears do not necessarily mean pain and heartbreak. The tears of joy that I've experienced through these years are beyond description. And I didn't know until I had one sponsee. Listen, we were doing her step 6. We met at a park bench outside the library, and she's sitting there crying. I said, what's wrong, Liz? She said, this is just so beautiful. Oh my God, you experienced this too. And it starts with just this little prayer, then launch into a course of vigorous action. Find out what in me has been blocking me off from the spirit. And then the joy of the freedom, the miracle of step 5. And the honor of listening to someone's 5th step is also beyond words. That they trust me enough to sit there, and I think she's here, but she came up with the concept of a God blanket. Me and you just wrapped in a God blanket, and we both rip off our masks. And for the first time in many of our lives that we've been 100% honest with, in front of God, with another human being. And what does it say? That we've had spiritual beliefs. Now we begin to have a spiritual experience. We feel the presence of God. That's why this God blanket idea has changed many people's life. And what Mo says is that, we get the little God blanket, me and you. And when we come out of that, the feeling that we get is that now in this world, there is one other person that I can tell anything to, that I don't have to put on any masks, that is never going to betray me, and is always going to have my back. What's that but freedom? There's one person, but then we invite other people under our God blanket, and it gets to be all God's kids. I say I don't have any secrets, but I do. But there are other people's that I've heard in fifth steps. I have no secrets. And I love people that, tell me their deep, dark secret. 2 days later, they're at the podium telling a whole room full of drunks the same story that they were never going to tell anyone. The greatest lesson we learn in Alcoholics Anonymous, I got this from my friend Paige. We get to say, me too. Come in here wounded and broken. And these people say, yeah, me too. Then we do the steps, and then we recover, and we get to sit there in someone's fifth step and say, you know what? Me too. That's what this is. That's the joy. That's the beauty of giving that we learn in here. We open our hearts, let the people in. My little favorite saying, the walls we build around our heart to keep out the pain also keep out the joy. Open our hearts, let the people in. And they're all God's kids. I've got a sponsee that doesn't believe that. Good for her. She's sober. But I see I like the Franciscan Lectio, where Francis saw God in brother sun, sister moon, in the earth, the tree, the leaves, the birds, the lilies of the field. He sees the face of God in everything. What does it say? And we agnostics face the proposition that God is everything or God is nothing. What is your choice to be? I also think God is no thing. But God, the face of God is in everything. How can you not be joyful? How can you not wake up every single morning and say, God, here I am. I'm ready. We did our choral room group. We have a Halloween party for the meeting. I came as SpongeBob. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready, 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 ready. Wake up every single freaking morning. So I'm going through this years of beautiful recovery with my lovely wife. We were married for 46 years. The only way she got out of it was to die. But she ended up coming home and saying that she thought she had bronchitis. And they said, get to the emergency room. She had a big spot on her lung, big spot on her liver, spots in her adrenal glands, spots on her head. And for 15 months, I thought it was going to be like a movie. She'll either miraculously get healed or die by next Tuesday. 15 months, I had the joy, the honor, the privilege of sitting down with that woman that got me to Alcoholics Anonymous because I heard her. And I got to spend every single day. She died right here where I'm sitting. Every day I did exactly what I told you I do every morning. And the Surprise Me God is based on a Richard Rohr thing. Love wholeheartedly. I've done long talks on, do you dare to love wholeheartedly? But that's a side issue. But it's also the way of life. But anyway, love wholeheartedly, be surprised. Give thanks and praise, and you'll know the full measure of life. And that's, morning, God, here I am. Surprise me. And so I would do that every morning. It worked out good. God woke up first. I woke up second. Katie woke up third. And every single morning in those 15 months, I'd say, morning, sunshine, got a smile for me? And only one day in the whole 15 months did she say, babe, I don't feel like smiling today. It was early in the game when all her hair fell out. So it took me 10 minutes. We laughed every single day, including the day she died. Why? Because we took God into our life. We didn't sit around praying. In fact, her religious sister came and was attacking her with communion wafers and medallions. And as poor as Kate's brain was fried, and that just scared the hell out of her. But she did. And so, good. I've actually got her killed off in less than 20 minutes. But in meditation, clearly I was not always joyful. because the love of my life is wasting away. This beautiful, creative woman was physically, but we laughed. Now I can't even walk up the stairs myself, but I would put her on my shoulder and I'd hike her upstairs till one day she spun out and peed on my head. So we both had a nice laugh about that. So I gave her my couch. But so in meditation, God took me into his world, and this changed my life. Babe, and I don't hear voices, but God put in my heart, babe, in my world, somebody is saying, this is the best day of my life. I fell in love. We're having a baby. From that moment to this moment, I now realize that I never have bad days. How many people I'm having a bad day? I suggest you aren't having a bad day. You're having a selfish day. Who am I to say that this is a bad day just because my wife is dying and suffering? But it doesn't make the day bad. It's my attitude toward that. We've had deep, effective spiritual experience that revolutionize our whole attitude toward God, toward the universe, toward cancer, to pain, toward suffering. We can live in compassion. And then, because I'm running out of time, so this has been my way of life. Be here for someone. Hold out our hand. My friend who's on here, after her 5th step, sent me the best gift I ever got in my life. Little AA coin. One side says, you held out your hand. The other side says, and it changed my life. That's our job description. Your job now is to be the place where you can be of maximum service to God and our fellows. Well, in order, I can't go through with it. And what does it say? That we are not a glum lot. We think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. If people didn't see us having a good time, they wouldn't want what we have. So back to Bill's story. Where does he get to a vast amount of fun? Well, he's in Charlietown's hospital, took over to become the 12 steps. He thinks he's rocketed. Then all of a sudden he's overcome with waves of misery and depression and gloom, despair. What does he have to do? He's got to get off his ass and go to Charlietown's hospital and talk to someone. And he'd be miraculously set on his feet. We have to practice all of these 12 steps. And then there is a vast amount of fun about it. The guy in A Vision for You, feel better, doing better. But he's not enjoying his sobriety. And he will probably go back to the old game again. I have to do all of this stuff. Get out of myself. Be there for God's kids. Get in the game. Put me in, coach. That you can do that little prayer if you want. Morning, God, put me in. Sign me up for the game. And this is a life that I just can't describe, although I spent 20 minutes trying to. But this is, enthusiasm. We can, enthusiasm, inspired by, possessed by God. Holy crow bones. I don't know what this God thing is, but I feel his presence, that 5th step promise, to see the pain and suffering and serenity be replaced with serenity and peace and joy. We can rest in ease and comfort, but we don't rest in ease and comfort. We get up, reach out, touch one of God's kids, change their life, and then we can trudge the road of happy destiny, not hanging in there one miserable day at a time. So I'll shut up before you tell me to.
Babe, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. This is awesome. And I'm a spearhead reporting for duty, sir. This is great. Love it. So good, babe. I really appreciate your insights there, your experience, strength, and hope through some pretty painful things that would have taken me out, I think. But I'm grateful that you have been you show an example of hitting them with a smile and with positivity. There are several questions that I wrote down, and I've got a couple questions that came in from the live audience. We'll get to those here as we go along. I'm going to start off with a question that came in early in your talk. This is from an anonymous attendee who said, "Is there hope for me? I've been in attendance for 42 years and God hasn't removed the problem. What's wrong with me?" And I'd love to get some more information on this person, but talk to us. What are your thoughts on that, babe?
There is always hope. Yeah, I don't know you either, but that really is the definition of step one. Who cares to admit complete defeat? And for me, it was diving into the book, but it can be the meeting. It can be find one trudge buddy Find someone that seems to have what you seem to be lacking. Get out of the judgment business. I am such a pathetic loser. I don't have any choice. That's how most of us walk into this thing. And my friend who's also on here says two things that we alcoholics are really suck at is drinking and suicide. If you're here, you probably failed at both.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
So that's enough. Don't give me one question because I'll talk for 3 hours.
Oh, I love it. I love it. We've got a couple other questions here, and I'm going to go to one that I wrote down towards the end of your share, babe, and it really hit me, and I'd like to get your take on this. You said, I just got to go out and practice the 12 steps and all I do, and that joy, that fun comes into it. And the question that came to my mind, what is the difference between taking all the 12 steps and practicing all the 12 steps? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, excellent question. First, it's not just reading the book. That's just knowledge. Then we start taking the steps. When I take the step, I got a pencil in my hand and I'm writing this 4th step. And I'm sitting down with this person. So I've taken the step, but practicing the discipline of the step is that I continue to take personal inventory, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, what do? I ask God. Talk to God. The discipline is step 10 and 11. That is not, we don't take step 10. We don't take step 11. We don't take step 12. We practice the disciplines we've learned in 3 through 9 and carry it into every moment of our life. It becomes a way of life. We live on the spiritual plane. It becomes a habit. Always do I walk around with a 4-column resentment inventory, expanded 2-column fear inventory, 9 relationship questions every minute of every day. But, it sounds facetious, but you know what? I do. When these crop up, when I feel a little distance between me and you, me and God, what do? God, take this away. Help me be your kid. I could go on for hours on that one too.
Love it. And I really appreciate that insight of, I don't take step 10, 11, and 12. I practice them. I live them. Love it. Okay. Another question from an anonymous attendee. This person says, I feel exactly like you did. I used to feel everything intensely and it was too painful. I feel like my heart hardened and I have no idea how to feel again without becoming overwhelmed. I haven't grieved any deaths in my family. What is a simple way to start to feel again?
Take the steps and then practice them. We can't seek compassion. We can ask God, build with me and do with me. Help me start practicing this every day. Help me bring light, hope, faith, joy, compassion, understanding. Practice that as a discipline. Notice I didn't say any of the character defects on the other side of the Francis prayers. I get to be an instrument of God's peace. Practice that when I'm feeling nothing towards someone. How can I understand them anyway? How can I feel compassion for them? And that is that inventory that we walk around in our head with. Am I the light of the world or am I just an Eeyore? Enough out of me.
Love that. Am I the light of the world or just an Eeyore? Great self-reflective question. I appreciate that. And if I am just an Eeyore, I got to find a way, find those attributes and find ways to practice them. Ask God to show me. You mentioned that the first meeting you went to, you implied this with a later thing, wasn't necessarily solution-based, but you found a solution-based meeting where the solution was there. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of finding a fellowship who really try to live in the solution versus just a group therapy or an Eeyore group.
Well, it's the difference between sobriety, relapse, and recovery. There's a world of difference between sobriety and recovery. We think a man unfeeling if he thinks sobriety is enough. We've got to practice this in all our affairs, in our home, our office, walking around on God's earth. And when we hear this message, and my group for 10 years, it was a Joe and Charlie meeting. We just listen to the Joe and Charlie tapes for about 20 minutes, after which we discuss what we have heard. And so when Joe and Charlie did the 4-step, I did the 4-step. Joe and Charlie were like my sponsors. That group was like my sponsor. And I heard people, I not only heard, I witnessed people living this life. They weren't sitting around just miserable, talking about their endless day. That we all know how to feel miserable. We all know how to kill our feelings. Then I found a bunch of people that seemed to be living this. And what is our job? Teaching and practice of the 12 steps of AA, if you're in AA. Carry this message of recovery, not just the message of gloom, despair, and agony. Hell, we can relate to that, but there isn't much hope in that. That's why it's so important to hear the solution. And it doesn't have to come out in words from the book. And more important is a demonstration of this joy that we experience. How come you're happy and I'm miserable? Oh, now we got something to talk about. That's enough out of me.
Yeah, I love that. We had a quick comment in from a live audience. What does the term Eeyore mean? So if you're familiar with Winnie the Pooh, that storyline, that those books and movies and cartoons, whatever, Eeyore is one of the characters. He's a donkey who goes around with basically a thundercloud over his head. Don't worry about me, and always seeing the negative side of things. And that's what an Eeyore, the term Eeyore means. So thanks for asking that question so it could be clarified for others. Awesome. Babe, we've got another question in that follows up on what I just asked you. This person is another anonymous attendee who says, "We're not a glum lot. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate the joy and enthusiasm you bring sharing your recovery. My local group is like the one you said you first encountered, group therapy without a therapist. If it weren't for some great Zoom meetings, I'm not sure I would have stuck around. Do you have any advice as to how I can help a sick meeting grow?"
Oh, good question. I don't have an answer. No, that's why it's a good question. There are two ways we can do that. One, vote by your feet, go to another meeting. I don't necessarily suggest that one. Get a recovery that somebody might want. Let them talk about their crappy day. Let them play junior therapist. But when it's your turn to share, I had to do a whole long 4-step on endless discussion meetings. But maybe, just maybe, my message is not strong enough to override the negativity of the meeting. So I don't always suggest go to another meeting. I always suggest go to another meeting because you can't live in the dark tunnel meetings. Go and get a little recharge, get a little humility, get a little joy, and then go back to that meeting and bring that with you. Enough out of me.
Yeah, I love that. Bring the message, bring the light, and yeah, love it. Thank you. Okay, babe, you mentioned basically your rock bottom moment was when your wife came home with a bandage on her arm, and you didn't understand where that came from. She said, "It's where he bit me," and that's a pretty stark awakening. Now, for some people, that may be rock bottom enough. Like for you, that was rock bottom enough to wake you up and say, "I got to stop doing this." Talk to us about rock bottoms, about varying rock bottoms, and what your thoughts are on when one can decide where rock bottom is.
That's good, because we hear disasters. I mean, if you're a chronic wife beater, well, sure, she probably deserved to get bit. But and that's why page 8 is so perfect of a description. You may hit bottom dropping a champagne glass next to a swimming pool. You may kill a busload of kids. What it takes is what it takes for me, deep in my heart, to feel the no words can express, that loneliness, the despair, the morass of self-pity. And don't we love the self-pity? But we drank to get over it. So bottom is when my heart is crushed, when I finally, to my own self, said, I'm done. I'm out of answers. I have nowhere to go. And what did Bill say? He almost wished for the end. When I'm that close, no matter what it is that brings me to the edge of wanting to end my life, maybe not even physically, but emotionally and spiritually, that to me is what a bottom is. And the proximate cause is unique to each of us. That's why I don't talk a lot about my drinking, because we all get here by different carts, but those of us that recover get to the point of hopelessness. Close enough?
Yep, close enough. Awesome. Thanks, Babe. A reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Babe, please type it in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. Looks like two speech bubbles over the top of each other. We'll get to those questions. I've got another question here for you, Babe, in the meantime. I love this line that you talked about in your morning prayer. Surprise me, God. Use me, God. I'm here. Tell us about a recent surprise that God put in your path that just kind of opened up your eyes to something new.
Oh, interesting. Well, it usually comes in the form of a call from a sponsee or a friend. And I use the word sponsor loosely, by the way, because we're all trudge buddies. And well, my surprise today was that, holy crow bones, I slept till 8:30. I usually have meditated for 2 hours by then. And somebody sent me a message, or yesterday's was, what the hell was the message? There are so many surprises. But, the line, we think the best years of our life lie ahead, page 152 in the book. And I always laugh at that because I'm 73 years old. That line scares me because I don't have very many days, but I do want them to be my best. So what I ended up using for my meditation that I sent out to everyone, I thought about that. What are the best days of my life? It's being here with each of you. And that is how that is the surprise I get every morning, that God has put so many people in my life. If you're a Christian, the devil's, we are legion. Well, we're bigger than legion. We're Elkies. We're addicts. We're God's outcasts, and we're in this stuff together, and we can be happy together. We can share the hope. We can share the love. So that just yesterday's little message was the one I've already forgotten. All I did was St. Francis would say, "Buongiorno, buona gente." He'd say, "Good day, good people." And so what I sent to all my friends was, "Good day, my good friend."
Love
and
it.
So that was my surprise for today, that these guys are all my friends. And I don't really try to define good or bad. That's a 7-step prayer. That's me being judging. But the fact that when I say my good friend, my good people, I'm saying, I love you. And so that was my surprise today.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, Babe. A question from an anonymous attendee. How many years have you been clean? And tell us a little bit about what a sobriety date means to you and what you do to perpetuate that.
Okay. Well, I've been clean since my shower yesterday morning. I know what you mean. March 2nd, 2002, I am not a relapser. The day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous was the first day, and that I jumped into this thing. And what time means is, the book even says, it's not the quantity of our faith, it's the quantity. And in fact, one of the people that I think are on here today, I said, she's 5 years sober. I said, you think just like I do with 20 years. I said, I can't wait to hear what your message is at 20 years, but I'll be dead. And she started crying. and I said, well, I'll try. I promise you can't die. And I said, well, okay, I promise I'll stick around till you get 20 years. So please don't relapse. But what we get is this experience. The more we share our lives with other people, and you don't get that in your first 2 weeks because you don't even know these goofs. But the more we get intimate with people's lives, their stories, their troubles, their joys, then the better we're able to identify and show hope, light, compassion to someone else. I have not experienced everything all of you have, but I guarantee you I've experienced the feelings. And so the longer I'm around, the more in tune I am with your feelings and my own.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a little bit earlier in this Q&A section, I say sponsor or sponsee, and I mentioned those lightly. Talk to me what sponsorship means to you today. How does that work for you?
Well, cool, because it's nowhere in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And and if this works, and a lot of people do that, some people need triage. We need to go through the book quickly, stop the bleeding. Now we can actually start taking the steps. Now we can actually start practicing them. But you got to put the plug in the jug, because that's the start. So sponsor at the beginning, if you're right fresh out of the gate, my job is to take you through the book, walk you through the steps. But usually by step 5, we become partners. The book talks about a protege, first a prospect, then a protege, and then a lifelong friend. And that to me is what sponsorship is. We don't all end up lifelong friends, but I'm willing to be there for you. And so after that 5th step I told you about, and so now when I talk to her, you be the sponsor today. We're partners. If you've recovered and I've recovered, if I've got 20 years, you got 5 years today, you might be more spiritually fit than I am. That's why we talk to people. So being a sponsor, and I think sponsorship is a team sport. I don't think I'm not your guy. I'm not the be all, know all, end all, because if you pick me as that kind of sponsor, you picked an idiot for a sponsor, or at least an egomaniac. We get humble together. Enthusiastically humble. Humility doesn't mean being a doormat. The more humble, and this was almost going to be my topic, was the long form of tradition 12. So humility, we must practice a genuine humility. This to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us. And my friend can hit a high C. Oh, living this life together. That's what sponsorship is.
I love it. Love it. And thank you for opening my eyes to that. After step 5, you say it kind of transitions to almost, well, you've said my trudge buddy several times. I love that imagery. Trudge buddy. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny. Love it. Okay. A couple more questions in here, and then we'll start wrapping up here in a few minutes, not in a minute or two, but in a handful of minutes. Question here. You talk of intimacy and vulnerability. How do we do that and keep ourselves safe and protected from the not so healthy people? It's a huge fear of mine. So what are your thoughts on that, babe?
Oh, they're actually, and my answer might be dangerous to someone, because I realize there are predators. I realize there are dangerous people. But when I live dreading being vulnerable, what am I saying if I'm in fear of that? As that I'm afraid you're going to really know who I am. If I'm vulnerable, I'm opening myself up for you to hurt me. And so the vulnerability that we learn in here, it's only through our vulnerability do we open the floodgates to let God in. We may get hurt, and then that's why we don't do this all alone. That's why we need people around us. And well, I suggest doing a fear inventory. What am I relying on? What part of myself? My pride, my self-esteem. My pride is my self-pity. And my self-esteem is I'm lower than whale shit. And that's how I try to get past the fear. Open my heart. Be vulnerable. Dare to love. That's why I love my little talk that I gave years and years ago. Do I dare to love? What's that but vulnerability? I might get my heart broken. My wife might get cancer. But what I get to be, I may not get love and tolerance back. I may get hurt back. But when I practice vulnerability and openness, I get to be a compassionate, loving man. And that's good enough for me.
Man, babe, that really speaks to me. That's something I'm going to chew on for a while and just ponder and see what we've got with so many, concepts and words of setting boundaries and keeping those that could hurt us away from us so they can't hurt us. And what you just shared there, I think there's something there that I really need to dig into and learn about. Thank you for sharing that. All right. This is the last question I have so far. We've got time for one or two more. If anybody else has a question, to type in the Q&A link. But here's one, and while it says it's going to take us off track a little bit, I don't think it is. I think we can address this. Here's a question that this anonymous attendee is asking, and it's based on the phrase from the Big Book: "Have we tried to make mortar without sand?" So, what are your thoughts and view on that question from the Big Book, babe? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what a cool question. Because, what do we get in here when we study the steps? We learn how to be construction engineers. Build with me and do with me. Holy crow, I'm in the construction business again. We're building an arch. We got foundations. We got cornerstones. We got keystones. Geez, I just want to quit drinking, for crying out loud. And making mortar without sand, goes back to Justin's question. What's the difference between taking the steps and living the steps? And that happens in the hour after our fifth step. I suggest go through the first 5 proposals. And what did step 1 mean when I first got here? What happened, and what does step 1 look like now in my life? Do that with each of those first 5 steps. It says we think about what we have just done. We are delighted. Anytime I ask people sometimes after their 5th step, how do you feel? Not one in hundreds of people have said, I'm delighted. After that hour, they find that the past is illuminated. They feel the sunlight of the Spirit. And that's what enlightenment is. It doesn't mean happy days, Skippy. So mortar without sand is half measures.
Love it. Man, we just got a whole bunch of questions come in. We'll get to as many as we can in the next couple of minutes. One of them is one that I kind of skipped over earlier, but I want to ask it. Is it a violation of the first tradition to mention a specific meeting in a disparaging light, a specific AA meeting? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, it probably is. But it is also my defect. And if I was disparaging that first meeting, I was not actually disparaging the meeting. I was disparaging the people in the meeting. And what we try to do, that's why I suggest bringing joy to those meetings. But if I'm talking about my experience at a meeting, I don't know that it is it's not an intentional violation of the first tradition.
Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate that. I had, when I first saw that question, I was like, I'm going to just skip over this, but thanks for hitting that. And I appreciate the vulnerability. It's probably a defect of mine. All right. Here is the next question. Is there a way to extend a hand of being helpful without being harmful or playing God, other than backing off to allow a person to burn out running on their own self-will when they're in their self-will run riot? What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, a very good question. Because especially when we're new at this sponsorship game, we're going to fix them. And I do give a little handout. I can't get you drunk, and I can't get you sober. But know that I will always be here. So, yeah, it's their recovery. You can't fix them. You can't convince them. What does the book say? Being convinced, we're at step 3, being convinced of those ABCs. I don't convince you. You get to be convinced yourself. And if it takes going out and burning your life further down to the ground, God, I wish you didn't have to, but it may get you to that bottom that we talked about a while ago.
All right, I've got 2 more questions. We'll do them pretty rapid fire here so we can close out on time. This attendee is saying, I'm going into treatment next week and I'm terrified to go through life sober. I want to achieve so much and I'm just too scared to attempt to achieve anything in life. My life is worry and terror. Do you have any advice?
Ooh, And I've never been to a rehab or any of that, but I suggest, and it's way out in the book, all the way into step 4. Fear, the evil and corroding thread, the fabric of our life is shot through with it. Fear should be classified with stealing. It robs us of everything worthwhile in life. It robs us of opportunity. It robs us of love. It robs us of every single thing. We think resentments are our problem. It's the fear behind the resentment, the wall that I'm building between me and you. Dare to go to the rehab. Dare to find out what a life of sobriety looks like. Dare to trudge with somebody. Dare to hold somebody's hand. Dare to give them a hug. So I suggest it's worth the effort.
Love it. And one last question. I think this is a good one to close out with. What helps you when you're struggling?
You. And God. You're not necessarily in that order. But and what does it say? Good place to end, because I started with Bill's story. What does he say? 2 things that we're supposed to do: to live a life of self-sacrifice and enlarge our spiritual life. I can't hide in a closet chanting Om Mani Padme Om. I got to get out there, mix it up with God's kids, be love and service. And that's and what did Bill say? That goes, gee, this is what I could talk a long time. What happened to Bill? He's got these cool 12 steps. He's rocketed. Now he's overcome with depression and misery. And what does he have to do? Go to the hospital and talk to some poor suffering soul. And he's miraculously set on his feet. And the paragraph after that is that there's a vast amount of fun about it all. Nice full circle there, buddy.
Love it. That was beautiful full circle. Guys, this was a great meeting. Babe, thank you so much for that. Great Rico 12 weekly speaker meeting. One of my favorites. I don't typically go back and listen to them again, but this one I'm going to. I've got some things I need to chew on. Thank you so much. Now, we've got lots of questions still. If we didn't get to your question in this short hour, or if you have other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to rico12pod@gmail.com. That's RECO12POD@gmail.com, and join in our community. Ask questions, answer other questions that may come up. And if you haven't yet rated and reviewed the Rico 12 podcast and Apple Podcasts, I invite you to go do that now. It's a great way to help us and you work your 12 step in sharing this message with others. Next week, we're going to be hearing from a Rico 12 veteran and a crowd favorite, Nikki M., whose topic will be, We Have Entered the World of the Spirit. I look forward to it. We're going to have 2 weeks in a row of just firecrackers, and it's going to be good stuff. Come back to next week. Don't miss any of the other Rico 12 resources that are coming out this week. Noodle It Out with Nikki, Big Book Roundtable. They come out Tuesday and Thursday. And let's now launch off into the rest of our day with the 3rd step prayer that Babe's going to say for us.
Very good. Great place to launch, other than step 4. But, take a moment. What are we actually asking for in the 3rd step? It is our job description the rest of our life. God, I offer myself to you. Build with me and do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of your power, your love, your way of life. May I do your will always.
Always. Thank you so much, babe. There is one, remember everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. Let's trudge this happy road of destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross. too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching